Parashat Chayai Sarah. ויהיו חיי שרה 100 שנה ו20 שנה ו7 שנים שנה חיי שרה ותמת שרה בקריית ארבע חברון בארץ כנען ויבוא אברהם יספד שרה ולבכתה. The life of Sarah was 127, the years of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, Hebron. That's Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Avram comes, and he gives a hesped to Sarah, and he cries for her. I think we have to address the elephant in the room, which I've never heard addressed. The Medrash says, "V'yavo Avraham lispod Sarah mehechan ba." Where is Avraham coming from? Mehara Moriah. He came from his last test, Akedat Yitzchak. And then there are many versions of what happens next, depending on the Midrash. But they all say the same thing. No matter which version. They say that Sarah Imenu, in her mind's eye, saw her husband with a knife and saw him holding her son down, and she saw him slaughter her son, and she couldn't do anything about it. And on that, she died. Maybe cardiac arrest. However, Hashem took her neshama, left her at that point, after she saw that in her mind's eye. There's also another midrash that it says, why do we say she lived, she lived 100 years, she lived 20, she lived 7, Shenei Chayai Sarah, because all of her days were full. She was always doing chesed. She was always bringing in, just like Abraham was bringing in, talking to the men, he wasn't talking to the ladies. And every man that he brought, a lot of them brought their wives. And that's what Sarah was doing. And her whole life of giving and teaching. Who did she die similar to? Tzidkiyahu? His eyes were the eyes of Adam Harishon, it says in Midrash. And his death was, they poked his eyes with hot rods of metal. But before they did that, they slaughtered his son in front of his eyes. And then they blinded him with hot rods. And then they killed him. So Tzidkiyahu died a horrible death. He saw his child slaughtered, and then he dies with that in the last thing. Is that not similar to Sarah Imenu? What did she do? She saw her husband who she gave with her whole life, and brought gerim, giving their energy to everybody, giving everybody, and slaughtering her son, and dies. So, Chazal do address this. And I think they address it in this Midrash, that a lot of people know, but there's really not a great explanation of this Midrash out there. Okay, I'm going to go from Midrash HaGadol. That's the best girsa. Midrash HaGadol, Megillat Esther. This is Reb Chaim Kanievsky's 1-year yard site. He wrote a Parashat. He always said Midrash Gadol on next to his table, they say in the book Hakdama. So they bring this midrash. Midrash Hagadol always has, most of the time, it has a couple extra words in each midrash. Sometimes it brings together two different ones and pieces them together. It's got very good girsa. So, v'yesh omrim. This is on Mehodu Vad Kush 127 Medina. V'yesh omrim Achashverosh lo malach ela al 7 Medina. Some say Achashverosh only actually ruled over exactly 127 provinces. Bilvad. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Hashem said, Achashverosh atid lakachat et Esther. Achashverosh is going to end up marrying Esther. Ashliteinu al 127 medinot. Bizchut Esther shehi mibnot Sarah shechayta 127 shana. Hashem says, Achashverosh is going to end up marrying Esther, and Esther is going to save the people. I'm going to only make sure that he rules over 127 Medina. Exactly. In the zchut of 127 years of Sarah. So what does that mean? That means Sarah's zchut of her 127 years contributed to Esther, and Hashem said, I want to make sure we have a gezerah shava, a common denominator over here, so we can learn one place to another, 127, 127, that there is a connection between these two objects that seem to be apart, which is Esther saving the Jews and Sarah 127. Well, let's continue in the Midrash. Rabbi Akiva hayoshev v'doresh betzibur. Rabbi Akiva was sitting and darshaning in front of the tzibur. V'hatzibur mitnamnem. They're falling asleep. They're cooling down. They're dozing off. Bikesh l'oran. He wanted to wake them up. Amar bizchut Sarah. He said, in the merit of Sarah, shechayta 127 medina v'sheva shana. I'm sorry. In the zchut of Sarah, who lived 127 years. Tavo Esther v'timloch al sheva ve'esrim umea Medina. Esther should come and rule over 127 Medina. End of Midrash. You should have questions. Okay, fine. 127. What's the significance? So they're connected. And then Rabbi Akiva. We're talking about Rabbi Akiva and everybody's falling asleep when he's talking. Who's Rabbi Akiva talking to? Is he not talking to the last 5 Talmidim that they're learning in secret? Is he not talking to the people? It could have been the early Talmidim, it could have been the later Talmidim. But he was talking to people that were sacrificing themselves to learn. So what does he say? He says, Sarah lived 127. Esther rolls over 127. And everybody's, oh, hey, yay. What? Okay, so here we go. Sarah wasn't tzaddiket, another Midrash says. And the Midrash says that tzaddikim, Hashem gives them a complete years. They die on their birthday. Why? Because the day of death, who controls the day of death? Only Hashem. He controls all of life. He also controls death. So how does Hashem me'id? Personal testimony. This is me. I am me'id. They are tzaddik. They die on their birthday. I'm giving him a complete year. I know when he was born. I know. I've been watching the whole time. Me'id. Sarah was 127. What happened when she was 127? She died. How did she die? We said, very painful, very horrible. So there seems to be a zchut that's hanging from Sarah at this moment. That this is not poor Sarah, next, let's go bury her. There is a heavy zchut hanging, cheshbon, Hashem has with Abraham, Hashem has with Sarah. Avram, did Avram say, Hashofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat? When he said that about people in Sodom dying when it wasn't their time? Avram didn't think it was the time. He didn't have Marat HaMachpelah ready. He wasn't expecting. Sarah Imenu was like Abraham. They both were refreshed when the Malachim came and visited them, and they were young, just like the coin that was made in Abraham's name, that was minted and was traded. It had an old couple and a young couple, because that was Avram and Sarah. They went from old to young. They weren't expecting. Avram didn't complain either. Avram didn't say, Shofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat. I come back from your test. And because she sees what you told me to do, she dies? He didn't say that. The schut was left untouched until there was a gezerah that went out. Lahari, laharog, lahashmid, ula'abed, et kol hayudim, mina, vadzaken, taf, venashim, ushlamam lavoz, and everything take. Everything, nothing left. In one day. One day. So Hashem has a very big card to play. And he looks around. Bnei Israel is calling, they're crying. They're all trying to do teshuvah. They're fasting. And Esther's the fast that Esther calls. And Sarah Imenu comes and says, remember how I died? Not being able to save my children. And seeing it done on the hand of those of my husband, who put all of his energy into the Gerim. Here I am. Pay the bill. So Rabbi Akiva says, Bizchut Sarah shechaita 127 shana tavo Esther v'timloch al sheva v'esim u'mea medina. What does Esther do? As she rules over these 127, she rules over. Not she just was the queen in the beginning. She rules. When Mordechai's in the house, what did she do? She saved all of the Jews for Midah Keneged Midah, for saving Yitzchak, for seeing Yitzchak and not being able to save them. She saved all of the Jews. Across from India, the Jews were all the way in Kush, in northern Africa. The Jews were all going to be gone. And they were supposed to be. That's why Shlomo HaMelech set up his Ir HaMiklat in Teman, because he understood that an empire is not going to go and survive the Saudi Arabian desert to conquer more land. So even Shlomo HaMelech, Berov Chochmah, Berov Kev, too much pain. He saw this coming, and he did not calculate Zchut Sarah Imenu. And that's why he sent stuff out of that territory. So, what does this have to do with Rabbi Akiva Mitnamnem? Rabbi Akiva sees his students. Their entire life is just so that they can be able to learn the Torah Shebaal Peh that's being erased around them as everybody's being slaughtered. And being able to write it down, all the Toseftot, everything that was said by somebody before needed to be written down. This was what we have. Because of that, we have this stuff today. Because of the 5 students afterwards that did that. We have all the Torah Shebaal Peh because of those Toseftot that wrote down. They gave everything for the Torah, and they were being hunted. Ra'asha tzibur mitnamnem, they're losing their fire. Rabbi, we're in the caves. We're learning. We didn't eat. What are we getting? Once a week, we're getting some. Ra'asha tzibur mitnam. Bikesh l'orah. He wanted to give them orerut. So what did he say? He said, "You think Sarah, who lived her whole life for Torah and gave, you think when she died, horrible, untimely death, it went unanswered. It went answered. And it was answered by the nitzachon with Esther and Mordechai over Haman and saving all the Jews. That's how Hashem answered that injustice. So for you, who's toiling to make sure the Torah continues during this horrible period where we're all being slaughtered, anybody that's learning Torah, if you get slaughtered like this, who knows what's coming? And who knows how you're going to say, Hodu LaHashem ki tov kilo nam chazdo in the future generations because of this. That's what Rabbi Akiva said. Bikesh le'oran, he wanted to wake him up. He said, B'schut Sarah shechait ameh ve'esim v'sheva medina. Shana tavo Esther v'timo v'sheva ve'esim u'meh medina. Don't worry. Now, later, Rabbi Akiva is getting his skin raked off of him with hot metal claws, rakes by the Romans. And his students say, Rebbe Ad Kan, Rebbe, even to this, you still? Is this what you were talking? Ad Kan, is this what you meant when you said this horrible injustice will be answered? He said, my boys, this is exactly what I was talking about. And he dies be'echad. Mishnah we have because of the Toseftas. We have Gemara. We have the Shulchan Aruch. We have the Rambam. We have the Toseftas that were written and saved for all the Midrashim, all through those hands. Rabbi Akiva's seemingly injustice is what continues us to have Torah Shebaal Peh today and to continue on until the Geula. And that is why when Moshe Rabbeinu had his many periods where he was able to just flip through time and go and see wherever, he got to see Yud K, Vav K, future, present, past, all. You should be giving the Torah on Rabbi Akiva's hand. You should be giving the Torah on Rabbi Akiva's hand. Look what he does for it. Hashem said, you don't know my cheshbonot. Next. Anyway. That I think should answer the elephant in the room of Sarah Imenu. And we should take that lesson into our lives. B'ezras Hashem.